Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here. I'm Julie Workman, Archford TCC, and we are just sharing information, hopefully to help you answer some of your questions. Good to see your faces, see lots of our people there. So we are going to do a Q&A after Tiffany shares her information. So if you want to hold your questions until she's gone through the presentation, she may answer some of your questions as she's going through, but feel free to use the chat for those questions, and then we will definitely save time at the end to make sure that she is able to answer all your questions, or at least we'll gather your questions and we'll get them to somebody who can, because some of these are pretty difficult. And so we're going to share some things with you also, business rules and those things that will help. So we have Tiffany Grayer here from DESE. She's in public school accountability. So I will turn it over to you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Julie, for arranging this for everyone today. I really appreciate that. This has been a great turnout and a great way to get some information out about our reports. And it couldn't have been more timely since we just released the private review of ESSA School Index and our accountability at a glance reports on Monday. I have included the link to the slideshow. So if anyone would like to join the view only access, they can make their own copy of these slides if they would like. I have included the bit.ly link so that you can gain access to the slides that I'll be using today. I've also included a link here on this first slide for the commissioner's memo that went out on Monday. It was Commissioner's memo number 23027. In that commissioner's memo, the school performance team put together a communications toolkit for schools and districts to use to communicate around the reports that are going to be released. One question that came up in the last session, when will the public view of the reports be released? And that date we think is going to be October 15th. We are going to be waiting for the state board meeting, which will be the 13th and 14th. So it may be the 15th, it may be that next Monday, which will be the 17th, but it should be coming around that time. We will release another commissioner's memo around the public release of the reports at that time, but we are ramping up this communications toolkit so that you can prepare your parents, families, and community members for the release of those reports. So there are 3 items in the communications toolkit. The first item is a letter to send home to your parents, families, and community members around your reports. This is a forced copy of a Google document. So if you're not already signed into Chrome with your Google account, you will have to sign into your Google account, and then it will ask you to make a copy. The reason we're sending it out like this is because we want you to be able to customize this letter to fit your needs and to be able to put in the information around your data. It's going to contain information around the different reports, so you can put in the information around your letter grade, your ESSA school index score, ways that your school has shown improvement over the past year, so that you can really break down those different ESSA indicators and SQSS components, because I'm sure that there's some indicator or component that you have made improvements on, because we are rebounding now from this pandemic. Also, there's a section of the letter where you can highlight how you're utilizing your ESSA funds to not only mitigate learning loss in your school or district, but also how you've utilized those ESSA funds to make facilities improvements for your school or district. So that you will want to customize that letter to send out. There's also a couple of flyers that we've made that use really parent-friendly language. We've taken the very technical language of the ESSA index and accountability at a glance reports, the school report card, and we've really tried to break down that technical language to language that parents can easily understand what the reports are telling them. And we've tried to make them really pretty so that if you want to print them out, hang them up around your school, and also send those out to the families and community members. They'll be able to get a quick gist of what those reports entail. The third piece of the communication toolkits is a one-pager explaining the ESSA School Index indicators. And we've also worked to try to put that very technical information in more parent-friendly language. And I want to attribute all of that work really to our parent and family engagement team. They've worked in collaboration with the school performance unit to really do a good job making those documents parent and community member friendly, to get rid of some of the educational jargon that we sometimes get a little heavy with. So check out the commissioner's memo. We've also done a complete revamp of our website here recently to make things more transparent, to add in some missing pieces that I felt, just like I said, that we're just missing. We want to add in a layer of transparency. We want to do a better job supporting schools. So we have revamped our website. So here's a link here to our reporting page where we have more information about our series of nested reports. So this is a snapshot from that flyer I was telling you about, and this really hones in on the first of the series of nested reports that I want to talk to you about today, and that is our accountability at a glance report, or our public school rating. And we know that we haven't had letter grades since 2019. This is the first time in a couple of years. They are back for 2022. And we are comparing scores from pre-pandemic levels. So I don't want to harp on this too much, but this is what the accountability at a glance report looks like for 2022. You will find your public school rating, which it is a transformation from the ESSA School Index score. These are broken down by grade span. You will also find the ESSA School Index score for your all students group and for each of the 6 reporting subgroups. So this is your accountability at a glance. We do not have the adjusted versus unadjusted score like we did in 2021. We did decide, however, to leave the information about percent tested at the bottom of this, which is not reflected here, but it will be reflected when you check out your scores on My School Info. I thought it was very helpful to be able to see what groups or subgroups tested at 95% in ELA and or mathematics. So I asked that they leave that part of the report on your accountability at a glance. So you will see if you have any subgroups that did not meet the mark for participation. All of our reports are a collaborative effort between the school performance team, the Office of Innovation for Education, which is in Fayetteville, and the Office of Information Technology. So we work together to produce these series of reports. All of the reports give you a glance at your assessment results, your graduation results, and just an overall glance at your school. They vary in length from a one-pager to the more extensive school report card. And that school report card is where you get your 3 years of your trend data. The public school ratings, that is up to the state law. So that is a state accountability piece, whereas your ESSA School Index is a federal accountability piece. So the state decided that we should align the accountability system with the federal. It's a way to align our state accountability with the federal accountability system. So we have this ESSA school index score, it's computed, and then we decide by grade span how to assign those letter grades. Now, the stakeholders decided how the rating scales were set up. This is not a rating scale that moves from year to year. There was a standard setting process that happened well before I came into this office. So there is no difference between the rating scales that were set in 2019 per se, and the rating scales that are being used in 2022. Okay, so if that's a misconception, let's clear that up now. We are planning on doing, I think there is a plan to reset standard for letter grades when the new assessment comes in, but this is not something that gets done on a year-to-year basis. So if we look at our elementary grade span, this is the PK5. There are several different grade ranges that fit into this grade span. And you'll notice we have the ratings over here and the range of ESSA school index scores for each letter grade. Notice there are several grade ranges in this grade span that do not include a tested grade. These are what we refer to as a feeder school, okay? So the only true accountability data that some of these schools may have would be their student engagement. Also, the weights of the indicators for an elementary school don't include a graduation rate, okay? So when we're looking through these rating scales, try to keep some of these things in mind, because you'll see the rating scales shift as we go from elementary to middle and to high school. Here are the middle school grade ranges. Notice the rating scale, the expectation is moved down a little bit for middle school. Middle school is also not going to include a graduation rate indicator in ESSA, but you're going to have a tested grade at all of your middle school grade ranges, okay? Now, once you get to your high school grade span, these grade spans are going to include your graduation rate indicators. So the ratings are going to drop a little bit, but then you've also got an additional indicator to include in your ESSA score. Keeping all of these things in mind, if you are thinking of doing some reconfigurations within your district, and we do produce an LEA data crosswalk every year. The one for the 2021-2022 crosswalk has just came out. It's posted on our website. That is a new subpage that we've just created so that you can see all of the history of the reconfigurations. So if you're interested, check that out. But you need to be mindful if you are making a change that is going to alter your grade ranges or grade spans, because it does impact your accountability. So school grade range changes may have some impact on your accountability. So if you annex a school or combine a school, say you had a K-6 school and a 7-12 school, and now you're going to be a K-12 school. Well, that K-6 school was an elementary, and now you're going to a K-12 school that's going to be high school, right? So those are all just decisions that you're going to be making that are going to impact your accountability and your ratings. It also can have an impact on your federal accountability as far as your identification and exit. So as far as identification for federal accountability, this is an identification year. So if a school is identified, that ESSA cycle, it will follow the students through that ESSA cycle, regardless of the LEA reconfiguration. As far as exiting, you would exit under whatever year you've reconfigured under. Let's talk a little bit now about ESSA School Index, because this is really where your letter grade comes from. So our ESSA School Index, we've already talked about how that ESSA index comes from multiple indicators. It comes from your weighted achievement, your value-added growth, your school quality and student success, your progress towards English language proficiency, and your graduation rates. We report on 7 different subgroups, and I've listed them here. Every year we put out a set of ESSA business rules. We also put, and that comes out before the ESSA School Index report. And then we also put out a statistical summary. The statistical summary is not ready yet for this year, but it should be coming out soon. So be looking forward to that. But those are both available every year on our informational documents webpage. So I've got that link available here for you. There's also other handy things like videos on how some of the calculations are made and other resources that you might find helpful. So let's talk about changes in scores and kind of where we're at right now. So last year I gave you this information about how we compared from 2021 to 2019, and there wasn't a whole lot of improvements across the state. We only had 12% of schools that showed an improvement from 2021 to 2019, or from 2019 to 2021, I'm sorry. And we tested about 97% of students statewide. So this year, we are making some gains. We are showing across the state that we are rebounding from the loss of, from our learning loss that happened during the pandemic. Now we are showing that from 2021 to 2022, about 60% of our schools have shown improvement in this 1 year. So that's great news. That's a lot better than what it was last year, right? And our testing rate, our participation rate is back closer to what it was in 2019. So we're at 98.84% in ELA and 99.03 in mathematics, which is very similar to where we were, in 2019. So like I said, look for positives here. In those letter grades, you're comparing 2019 to 2022. And it's kind of unfair because we can't compare 2021 to 2022, right? So as we're looking through our scores, let's look for the gains and the growth that we've made from last year. Let's look at our overall scores and compare those overall scores, or let's compare our weighted achievement and our different indicators, because we have made great gains. If you're still asking, what can I do to improve my score? I would urge you to look at your core instruction in ELA and mathematics. Lewis Farron is on here with me, and he's been in accountability for a long time. And we were just talking about, you're going to get your most bang for your buck in looking at your weighted achievement and your growth, and the majority of those calculations come from your instruction in ELA and mathematics. And so that's kind of the message we're here to send today. Your literacy skills, your numeracy skills can be taught in every subject area. You should be looking for ways to embed those skills into every content class, because that can be done. It's something that's totally doable. At the elementary and middle grade spans, your growth is counting for 50%. Sorry, I have to forward my phone. Your growth is counting for 50% And your progress towards English language proficiency is proportional to the number of English learners that you have at your school. Your weighted achievement is 35%. Your SQSS is 15%. And for elementary, depending on the grade level, a lot of that may be coming from student engagement. And we had a lot of student engagement questions in the last session. And I think Julie's got some resources for you as far as that's concerned. Okay, sorry, I had to forward my phone. It keeps ringing. At the high school grade span, the growth is 35% and achievement is 35%. So right there, that's 70% of your ESSA school index. Just like it was with elementary and middle school grade spans, the growth, the progress towards English language proficiency is proportional to the number of English learners that you have at your school. SQSS is still 15%, but here at the high school grade span, you're getting points for graduation rate. So your 4-year grad rate is 10%, your 5-year grad rate is 5%. So failing to test, what happens if I don't test at least 95% of my students or a subgroup of students? So as far as the all students subgroup is concerned, that is for the state accountability in your all students, that could lead to a standards for accreditation citation, and you might have to go before the board. This year, the notification letters that we will send out in November, or they may come earlier, but we're not making any promises. But the information about participation or 95% tested will be included in the notification letters for the first time. So you will know whether or not, and you can look also on the accountability at a glance report to see if you have any subgroups where you failed to test 95% as well, but that will be in your letter. For all students or student subgroups, that is a federal accountability piece. So if for any subgroup you failed to test at 95%, that will cause a weighted achievement adjustment, which could lower your ESSA school index score. This especially impacts smaller schools with lower enrollments. If you miss that mark for 2 or more consecutive years, you are going to be placed on a participation plan of support with the school improvement, or I'm sorry, the school performance unit. And then we will ask that you do some things like test early, do makeup testing early, attend assessment correction engine webinars, and also make an appointment with your school performance program advisor to get your corrections done early in ACE. So there's some steps that you can take to be a little bit more proactive in getting students tested, and we're going to ask that you do those things so that you don't end up a 3rd year in a row with subgroups or your all students group not meeting the mark for participation. Weighted achievement. Let's talk about weighted achievement. So that is 35% of your score, regardless of your grade span. And weighted achievement measures what the student knows and is able to do in both ELA and mathematics. So on the ACT Aspire, the scores are grouped according to the performance levels. You have the in needs of support, close, ready, and exceeding. On your DLM assessment, the student scores are grouped according to performance levels of emerging, approaching the target, at target, and advanced. Those performance levels are then transformed to level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4, respectively. A level 1 score is worth 0 points. A level 2 score is worth 1/2 of a point. A level 3 score is worth 1 point. And a level 4 score is just a little bit more complicated. And that's because a school could earn incentive points if the number of level 4 is strictly greater than the number of level 1. So we would do a subtraction problem here. We would see if the school earned more level 4 than level 1. If so, we would subtract, and the difference would be worth 1 point, and the subtrahend would be worth 1.25 points. So we're going to go through a very simple example of weighted achievement. And then if you guys want to know more about weighted achievement, I have a video that you can watch to learn more about weighted achievement. And by the way, only scores from full academic year students are included in weighted achievement calculations. And to be considered a full academic year student, the student would have to attend the same school continuously from October 1 through the beginning of the testing window. So we're going to take this school here. We're going to say this school had 20 students that were expected to test. And so 95% of 20 would be 19. So we're going to say that this school tested 19 students. So for the ELA exam, let's say 5 students scored level 1, 5 students scored level 2, 6 students scored level 3, and 3 students scored level 4. And on the mathematics exam, we'll say 5 students scored level 1, 5 students scored level 2, 5 students scored level 3, and 4 students scored level 4. And now we're going to need to do a little simple math here. We're going to add down the columns to get a sum. So 5 and 5 is 10, 5 and 5 is 10, 6 and 5 is 11, and 3 and 4 is 7. Next, we're going to weight the sum by the points that are given to each proficiency level. And forgive me, I've got a typo here. So each level 1 is worth 0 points. So 10 times 0 gives us 0 points for level 1. Each level 2 is worth 1/2 of a point. So 10 times 1/2, this should be 5 points for level 2. Each level 3 is worth 1 point. So 11 times 1 should give us 11 points here for level 3. And then to calculate level 4, we first must compare and ask ourselves the question, is the number of level 4 strictly greater than the number of level 1? Well, 7 is less than 10. So this school is not going to get any incentive points. We're just going to multiply 7 times 1 and get 7 points. Okay, so this is I tested at 95%, but I do not get incentive points. Okay. The simplest case scenario of weighted achievement. So to calculate weighted achievement, we're going to use the following formula. The weighted achievement is going to be the sum of the points at each level over the sum of the sum at each level, all times 100. And so if I go back over here, I'm going to I'm going to add up this row, that's going to be my numerator, and then add up this row, that's going to be my denominator. Okay. So I've got 0 plus 5 plus 11 and 7, 10, 10, 11, and 7. Those are my denominator. So my ratio adds to 23 over 38. all times 100. And that denominator could be up to twice the number of students expected to test at my school. And I say up to twice the number because I could have a student that took the mathematics exam, but not the ELA, or vice versa, right? So my unadjusted score is going to be 60.53, but since this school since this school met the participation requirements, this is also my adjusted score. So if you're interested in learning more about weighted achievement, the 4 case scenarios that happen here, because you have 2 decisions to make, either my school tested at 95% or they did not, right? So there would be an adjustment to be made in the denominator or not. So that's my first decision I have to make. The second decision I have to make is the school awarded incentive points because the number of level 4 was strictly greater than the number of level 1. So those are the 2 decisions that are made when calculating the weighted achievement scores. So I'll go through each of those case scenarios in that video. It's linked up here at the top. So if you guys want to watch that and learn more about how we do the weighted achievement calculations, feel free. It's there for you as a resource. It's kind of long. That's why I wasn't going to go through each of the scenarios today, because we could talk about that for 20 minutes. Like I said, when I started this conversation, if you want to improve ESSA, you need to be focused on 2 things. You need to be focused on your core curriculum in ELA and in mathematics, right? Because that's where your scores are coming from. So make sure that you understand what your standards are asking you to teach. The standards for ELA and math are currently being revised. And which is a good thing because we know there's a new assessment coming up. So for the first time in a while, our assessment will be aligned to our standards. Whoop, whoop, that's a great thing, right? I've heard nothing but positive about this new assessment. I think we're heading in a great direction as a state. So we have 1 more year with this ACT Aspire, and then it's looking very hopeful after that. So know what your standards are asking you to teach. And for right now, know what those ACT Aspire performance level descriptors are asking you to teach. Because if we don't know what our target is, how can we know how to hit that target, right? Utilize some of these open educational resources that the content specialists at our state and co-op level have put together for you to use. Because they're fantastic resources. They've all been vetted by very smart people, you know, that know way more than myself. Also, make sure that your core curriculum that you're using at your school or district have passed through Ed Reports Gateways 1 and 2, showing that curriculum is aligned to standards. So if you're not familiar with Ed Reports, go on Ed Reports. They evaluate curriculum. They make sure that the curriculum that you're using is high quality. I urge you to go on there and look at the curriculum that you're using and just see that, you know, look at the report that's been made. See if it's been reviewed by Ed Reports. Our curriculum and instruction team and learning services have been working with Ed Reports for quite a while, and I'm sure they can give you more information on that if you need it. As far as the value added growth is concerned, depending on your grade span, that has a different weight for the indicator. It's heavier at your elementary and middle school than it is for your high school, but it is still a heavy weight as far as ESSA is concerned. So when you are calculating growth, we need at least 4 years of prior year scores to be able to calculate the growth trajectory or the regression line. So this is done, the growth is done for the first time for a student in grade 3, and they utilize the K2 assessment history. The growth score is a comparative measure to that trajectory in that it measures how far off, or the perpendicular distance, the student's actual score was from where the growth trajectory or the regression line projected that the student should have scored based on how well the score or the student scored in the past. The growth scores are residuals and they're centered at 0. If a student's growth score is 0, then we say that that student met expected growth. If a student has a positive growth score, then the student exceeded expected growth. And if the student had a negative growth score, then the student made less than expected growth. The residual growth scores, or the Z-scores, are then transformed to a score with a mean of 80 and a standard deviation of 35 for our reporting purposes. So that's just a little background about how growth is calculated. A student's value-added score tells us how much a student grew this year compared to how we thought he or she would grow based on their achievement in prior years, or the student's score history. The student's achievement scores over time is called their score history. And so we subtract that student's predicted score from their actual score to get their value-added score. The value-added score comes from really 2 different scores. You've got your content value-added score, and then you've got your progress towards English language proficiency. A weighted sum of that content growth and the English language proficiency growth is divided by the total number of EL students with ELP growth and your students with your content growth. Each full academic year English only student counts only once in the content growth. So a student could count twice in growth if they're an English learner. We say that the progress towards English language proficiency is proportional to the number of English learners that you have at your school. If you don't have any English learners at your school, then this value-added growth score comes exclusively from your content growth. If you had 100% English learners in your school, then the value-added growth score is coming half and half from that progress towards English language proficiency and that content growth score. So in order to improve your growth score, we have a few resources for you here. First of all, if you have not yet been on the LEA Insights School Value Added Growth module, I would urge you to check that out. This is growth at the student level so that you can see where your students are and where they're going. It's very interactive and easy to use. We do have a video for that on the Public School Accountability webpage. This is the same slide that I used for the ELA and mathematics, because what's going to help you in weighted achievement will also help you in growth as far as ELA and mathematics. I cannot keep saying that enough. Focus on literacy and numeracy, because that's what's going to help you raise your scores on ESSA. Also, consider your progress towards English language proficiency. Tricia Kerr, Lupe Pina de la Martinez, at the department here. They will both help you if you have questions with English, ESOL or EL in general. Those ladies are fantastic. If you need to reach out to either one of them, they can help you. They are the experts in that area. Also, I've included a video that Dr. Denise Arola did on student growth. I think this was at the 2021 summit, but it was a fantastic recording, and she can explain growth way better than myself. She is the expert in that. So I just wanted to, if nothing else, I can feed y'all full with resources to use. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that as well. Our SQSS score can vary. It has 11 different indicators, but it can vary depending on the grade span. Many of these grade spans, or I'm sorry, many of these components in the SQSS score only apply to high schools. And some of them only count for 12th graders. So they, like the community service learning, we were just having a discussion about that earlier. The students could get that credit in their 9th, 10th, or 11th grade year, but they don't get credit for it until their 12th grade year. So this is one of our components that has kind of taken a hit over the past couple of years, but we would really like to see schools make some improvement on that. So Amber Pernique is the contact for community service learning if you need help with community service learning. Some of the other components such as student engagement, reading at grade level, science achievement, science and science growth, those will be available to elementary and middle school grade levels. Some ways to improve your SQSS score. We've made a similar slide for science and reading because of your reading at grade level, science achievement, science growth. Be aware of what your standards are asking students to know and be able to do. Be aware of your performance level descriptors for those subject areas. The reading, you know, you have the state accountability piece with your reading as far as the 40% in need of support, the 50% in need of support. This shows up in ESSA as far as an SQSS component is concerned. Here is the student engagement, the chronic absence risk level. So if your student is absent less than 10%, or I'm sorry, if you have a student that is absent more than 10% of the school, that's when they don't get any points in SQSS. If they're absent between 5 and 10%, they get a half point. If they're absent less than 5% of the school year, that's when they can get a point in SQSS. The student engagement piece comes in cycle 7 data, and all SIS cycle data has been certified. So that data, certified data, cannot be corrected once it's been certified. So that's something that's noteworthy. Like I said, our community service learning score has been down the last few years. Like I said, reach out to Amber Pernique if you're looking for some creative ways to try to boost that score. Grad rates. This is a very timely conversation because graduation rate corrections period for next year's ESSA school index, because that is a lagging rate. That period starts October 31st. So when you guys think of Halloween this year, think of graduation rate corrections. This is our window for corrections. So mark your calendars now to do your graduation rate corrections with our office. If you're not the person that does graduation rate corrections, please spread the word in your building. We want to help you with those corrections. You can make an appointment with us if you need help. We are here to support you in any way we can. We will be having 2 webinars prior to the window opening. If you have a new person in your building that's doing this job for the first time, we're going to walk them through how to enter corrections in the portal. We're going to go through some of the laws, rules, and regulations around what's admissible in the correction system, and just be there to answer questions for anyone that may have them. So 2 webinars, you can use these links to register now. We'd love to see you there. Like I said, we're just here to try to support and add that layer of transparency. We're just trying to use our teacher hats over here to help you guys in any way that we can. This is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. If I can't answer your question, I'll try my best to find the person who can. My team is absolutely wonderful here. We've had some people that have been in accountability for a really long time, and then we've got some just newer people that are just gung-ho to learn, but we are all here to support you. And we're just excited to meet new people and help you guys do the work that you do, because you are so important to the students in the state of Arkansas. So please reach out to me. And at this point, I do have an exit ticket that I'd love for y'all to fill out. I can drop that link in the chat though, but I really want to turn it over and let's do a section on Q&A. I see this presentation. Oh, thanks. Y'all put Amber Pernick's contact information. I think the slides presentation is in there too. I'm going to stop sharing.
Well, and Tiffany, Dr. Workman had to slip out to a meeting, so
Okay.
I'll help man the chat with any questions.
Awesome.
I did want to let them know you referred to this a little bit earlier about Dr. Workman's document that she put together. We had a lot of questions after the morning session around attendance. And so Julie pulled the business rules as well as the commissioner's memo and created a document for you to go back and refer to. She also pulled the recording and the slides to Denise's presentation that Tiffany referred to earlier. So I'm going to go ahead. This is the document Dr. Workman created. And we have an attendance form also, Tiffany. So I'll drop that in the slide. But if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat.
And
yeah, I'm going to get that exit form right now, Bonnie.
Oh, I was dropping it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. And I'm dropping the attendance form right now.
Okay. Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah. Okay. So any questions for Tiffany?
And I've got Mr. Fair in here too. He's awesome. He's been writing those business rules for years.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Absolutely, Lewis. Hey, when I don't know the answer, I run across the hall and I'm like, Mr. Farron, help.
We all need a Mr. Farron, don't we? We all need a Mr. Farron. So, well, this has been recorded, so we will share that out with those that attended to make sure if you want to go back and watch. Okay, so we do have a question, Tiffany. If a student is on grade level or above every year, what does his or her growth trajectory look like?
Lewis, you want to take a stab at it? I'll let you be in the limelight. It should be above, well, on or above grade level.
It would be at 80 or above every time.
That's what I would say too, because he's going to be expected to meet growth. So yeah, he should be right. I wouldn't expect that it would be a lot above 80 though, right, Mr. Farron?
Right, 80 is what you expect.
Yeah, because he's on or above, so he'll be probably right around 80 or maybe just a little over.
So Tiffany, would the modules in LEA Insight about individual student growth help answer some of these questions? I can't see those
Maybe.
modules, so I just know that they're there.
So like I was telling the people in the first session, it is my personal mission this year to get some student data and actually run the calculations by hand and do the mathematics. So my background is I was a high school math teacher, and I've been a college level math teacher, and I served the state of Arkansas as a secondary mathematics specialist. And so I got over here in public school accountability, and at first I felt like they were speaking a foreign language. And then they said, I think you'd be really good at this job because of my mathematics background. So my personal mission is to really find out exactly what's going on in these growth calculations, because I get asked a lot of questions. And so I really intuitively think I know what's going on, but I want to know exactly what's going on. So I can show examples just like I did with that weighted achievement example.
Yeah.
And do a better job explaining, because I think we can always improve on our practice.
I agree. Same here. Okay, here's another question. How are the total numbers for SQSS calculated, and why are they higher than other areas in this section?
You mean the overall SQSS versus the individual components in SQSS?
Chrissy, can you give us a little bit more information?
$6.52. Maybe because like with weighted achievement, only full academic year students are counted. Lewis, do you have any insight on this? Are there other components of SQSS where highly mobile students are included in the calculations?
Well, the highly mobile, the student engagement are included. For student engagement, the highly mobile students are included, but usually they're not. For the other components, they're not.
Okay, so she's saying, so in student engagement, the highly mobile students would be included, but reading at grade level, they would not be, because that's an assessment result, correct?
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
They only have to be present for 10 days to be counted for student engagement.
Then that's exactly the answer then. Does that help, Christy?
Okay, any other questions? As long as we test at least 95%, there is no harm to our school scores, correct? For instance, we're at 99.
That is correct. You need to make sure you're testing each subgroup at 95% as well, though. It's only for the all students is the state one, the one to avoid the standard citation. The federal piece looks at all students and the subgroups. So you could get a weighted achievement adjustment in a subgroup, even though you've tested all your students.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, Miss Tiffany, we certainly appreciate, so the overall score is calculated for these students, although we don't get points anywhere else. That's Christy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because of your engagement, and because in SQSS, some of that information is coming in from cycle data. And so that's the one component of ESSA that doesn't come from assessment or graduation rate data. It's just like when your school report card comes in, there's a lot of data coming in from cycle data that's not from assessment or graduation rate data. And that's why I think with some of the questions that we're getting asked in the first session, some of the data is not filtered through my office, it's filtered through other offices because it's coming in through SIS cycle data. But SIS cycle data is also certified data. So I know we're getting a lot of questions and people are hoping that this is a correction period also, but there's no data to correct right now because correction periods have already happened and they don't allow a correction period for SIS cycle submissions. So unfortunately, if you're having an issue thinking that your attendance data is wrong or something like that, unfortunately, there's really nothing that we can do at this time. So
a lot of the information is taken at the end of cycle 7. So if the data wasn't entered on time, like with community service learning, if that was not entered by the time that cycle 7 was done, then you may not be getting points for that.
Thanks for that, Lewis, because yeah, they're asking what data is pulled from cycles. So for ESSA, it's just some of the SQSS components, what exactly is coming in from the SIS cycles, and that's laid out in the business rules, but do you want to go into more detail on that, Lewis?
If you go to informational documents and look at the business rules for the ESSA skill index, it talks a lot about that, but most of the things it seems to me are cycle 7.
That's what I think too.
So make sure you enter your information early enough to get it included in cycle 7.
Okay. Well, we're going to stay on for a little while. If there's anyone that has a question that they want to pose, Dr. Workman is back. Dr. Workman, do you want to add anything?
Well, I just have one question that was in my direct messages. COVID absences, do those count like regular absences for student engagement? Did y'all talk about that?
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you. That was the only one that I had.
There's one about testing 95%, and then from Allison. I don't know if y'all saw that one or not, Karen, Julie.
Let me go back up.
We addressed that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, Tracy. So, okay. Well, we certainly appreciate you all attending this afternoon. I know this was good information and I learned more the second time. So I may need to hear it 2 or 3 more times, Tiffany, before it really starts to stick. But you have lots of contact information that we've shared and lots of information between Tiffany's presentation and Denise's presentation that we linked, and then the document that Dr. Workman created. So just reach out if you need anything, and we appreciate it.
Thank y'all so much.
That's it.
Okay, Tiffany, will you go ahead and send me this recording too when you get done?
I sure will.
Hey, Julie, can I
Yes.
ask a question after you turn off the recording? Can you stay on for just a second? And maybe
Absolutely.
Tiffany?